It's draft week. It is here. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi with you on SportsGrid on Pro Football Today as the countdown continues to the NFL draft. And let me tell you, Joe, not a quiet road on our journey to draft night. Some big news happening around the National Football League.
Yeah, you and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago that leading up to the first round, the potential for teams to draft up and down and make moves prior to night number one would be potentially on the table. And we saw that transpire over the weekend. But at the end of the day, Kevin, there are teams that can significantly upgrade within the first 5 picks, and we'll see how it plays out. Fernando Mendoza, I still believe, will be the first player chosen. But anything could happen on draft night.
Yeah, there's uncertainty right after that Mendoza pick. Some certainty gaining in the market. We will talk about that. We will talk about the fact that now one team owns multiple top 10 picks. A lot of rumors around who is looking to move up, who might be willing to move down. But I want to begin with some news out of Philadelphia. A story that Joe and I have discussed a lot, followed quite closely, and looks like it is really coming to a head here as A.J. Brown, according to Adam Schefter, is likely to become a Patriot following June 1st. For those that are maybe playing a little bit of catch-up or just trying to completely understand, there's just a lot of language in these NFL contracts that, June 1 triggers different numbers, and for Philadelphia to trade A.J. Brown today is a lot more expensive than it would be to trade him on June 2nd. And that has led us to believe that A.J. would be traded not until June. But that did make things complicated, right? Teams want to know if they're going to have a player of A.J.'s caliber before a draft. And in a lot of cases, Philly would probably want to have picks this year, Joe, instead of kicking it down the road. That may not be how that plays out, but it almost feels as if, and maybe they're not allowed, I don't know, to report it until June, call it 2nd, right? But it feels like we know A.J. Brown is done in Philadelphia and a New England Patriot.
Right, so let's start with the Patriots side. We saw that game philosophy and game script play out in the Super Bowl, lack of speed on the perimeter, and Drake May was battered early and often. He now is the number one, taking over for Stephon Diggs that got released at the end of the regular season. But here we are, Kevin. A.J. Brown significantly upgrades the passing attack now. Is New England all of a sudden now going to throw it all over the yard? No, but at least they have a wide receiver that they can count on. And then those secondary pieces like Kayshon Boutte and some of the others now fit, right? It's more of a much cohesive type of offensive unit. For Philadelphia, they got rid of A.J. Brown strictly for the sideline antics and for the locker room. And if this team is going to be headed back to the Super Bowl, you and I discussed it. It has nothing to do with the physical attributes because he's clearly the number one wide receiver in that offense. What happens is when he's not fed the football, whether the team is winning or not doesn't become the main concern for A.J. Brown. And that's where, when you look at this coaching staff and you now have a new offensive coordinator and you have a quarterback in Jalen Hurts that struggled last year, you want to make sure that every player and everybody in that locker room is on the same page so that now you can compete for an NFC championship. The fact that the Philadelphia Eagles won 5, 6, 7 straight and A.J. Brown wasn't happy is absolutely ridiculous.
So to Joe's point, there was a 3-week run where A.J. Brown looked completely himself. 24 catches, 342 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The Eagles went 0-3 in those games. It was, it felt like AJ's kind of quietest part of the season, if you will. AJ still, in playing just 15 games, amassed 5 100-yard games, a couple of multi-touchdown performances as well. I think for New England, the off-field stuff is less concerning because it's a fresh start for A.J. Brown, right? And I think the way things got in Philadelphia, I think some of that was maybe, I think there was some personal stuff, Joe, right? Like, I think maybe Brown and Hurts going way back. I think at one point, maybe really close friends, maybe a frustration that came through a little bit where I think A.J. Brown will be on a much better behavior, or at least off the bat there. And New England needed a guy that felt a tier above. If you looked at the roster, especially with Stephon Diggs not on it, the wide receiver room is, borderline unacceptable for Drake May to go into this season. Romeo Doubs, Kayshon Boutte, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams, Mac Hollins, all fine players. Nobody you would consider a top 30 wide receiver in football. Not a one of those guys. I do wonder if AJ's best football's behind him. He's not 30 some odd. He'll be 29 at the start of the next league year. But I also think for a Patriots team who played in the played in the Super Bowl, I don't know if they're as concerned about getting 6 great years out of A.J. Brown as like 2 great years, Joe, out of A.J. Brown, and making sure that Drake May stays on this trajectory as a top 5 quarterback in this league.
Yeah, I agree with that, wholeheartedly. I will say this, and you're right. With a new team now, you don't have to worry about his antics on the sidelines this year, right? He's got a new relationship. It's a new fan base. It's a new quarterback. So whether he catches 4 passes the first 4 weeks of the regular season, as long as the team is having overall success, I believe that A.J. Brown will bite his lip and won't say anything to the media, right? And plus, he's with his former head coach, Mike Vrabel. That being said, though, what happens in year 2 and beyond? That's the biggest concern for the New England Patriots. But they're trying to catch right now lightning in a bottle in year number 1 with AJ to get back to an AFC championship and, more importantly, make it to the Super Bowl. If they can all of a sudden elevate to now where Drake May has that complimentary go-to wide receiver that, hey, in red zone opportunities is going to put up, 10, 11, and 12 touchdowns this year. That's what they want to go with the rushing attack. And again, now you open up the offense, especially if you could draft another wide receiver, come Thursday night or Friday into the weekend. So again, they have what they needed. They thought they had that with Stephon Diggs, but it's clearly, if we're looking at Stephon Diggs last year and where AJ is right here, right now in terms of productivity, maybe he's still not the wide receiver that he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he's a significant upgrade from where Stephon was last year in terms of speed and physical attributes.
Yeah, for Philadelphia, there are valid questions about how this will impact the offense because A.J. Brown, in a way, it doesn't even matter what A.J. Brown is going to be for New England. What A.J. Brown has been for Philadelphia, an incredibly productive wide receiver, right? 1,000 yards on a yearly basis. But from a asset management perspective, right, which is at least where we kind of are right now, this has been perfect. There was worry that Philadelphia having to wait until June 1 could be costly. It's only been better for Philly. Every single trade that's happened involving players has upped that A.J. Brown price. From Max Crosby to Dexter Lawrence, which we're about to talk to, Philly's going to net more than just 1 first-round pick. And it's probably easy to argue that 2027 draft capital is more valuable than 2026. So, and from that end of it, it's at least good news for Philly. Let's talk about that Dexter Lawrence trade. A bit of a stunner as he is now a Cincinnati Bengal. That's next, and it is right here on Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi on SportsGrid. All right, in the mix here on Pro Football Today and over the weekend, just a stunning trade in the NFL. You do not see deals like the one that we saw between New York and Cincinnati. The Giants trade Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick straight up. That was the whole deal. And man, the reactions are a little bit split. And sometimes like reactions will be split, but communities will be in sync. If in the analytics side will say, whoa, bad deal, the just get me a good guy group will be like, awesome. Even that was kind of a little bit divided. There are some who champion just Dexter's undeniable talent level. There are others who are worried about his age and health coming, off of an injured season. Some people talk about cost effectiveness, just being able to draft a player 10th overall. There are some valid questions, though, about who was going to be available for Cincinnati at 10. It wasn't a guarantee they were going to love their options in that spot. I think it was a guarantee they weren't going to get a player as good as Dexter Lawrence for this coming season at that spot. So let me ask you, Joe, if you had to pick a winner of this trade between the Giants and the Bengals, who would it be?
Giants, absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer to me. And you look at Dexter Lawrence's productivity last year; it tailed off. And again, at times he didn't look interested. He looked like he was checked out. Didn't look like the same player that they drafted out of Clemson. And again, when you talk about the ability to get a top 10 pick in an upcoming draft, Kevin, with sitting at number 5 overall, that's phenomenal. I mean, John Harbaugh on this staff now potentially have the ability to draft a young player, whether it be offense or defense, and coach him up and now start a foundation. You have your quarterback in Jackson Dart. You hopefully have Malik Neighbors coming back and rebounding from an ACL, a pure number 1. Now you can fill out the roster according to team needs. So I think it's great. For the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't know if Dexter Lawrence all of a sudden upgrades this defense to where we say they're going to compete for, a North title based off of his, addition to this roster. I just don't see that. They have multiple needs on the defensive side of the ball, and adding a veteran like this helps, but it's not like all of a sudden now they got Micah Parsons like Green Bay did last year, and this is the cherry on top.
Yeah, Joe, I'm a little torn across the board, but I think if you had to pick a winner or a loser, the Giants, you're right, are the winner because Dexter Lawrence didn't want to be there and they would have paid him more. But this is a Giants team that needs to bring in talent. And yes, they're losing an incredible talent by getting rid of Dexter Lawrence. But I've pushed back on, there's a lot of people who believe since Harbaugh's there, this team's just going to walk into 10, 11 wins. No problem. I don't agree with that. So I don't mind getting younger and cheaper with the 10th overall selection. So from that end of it, it does excite me. But let's stick on the Giants side for a beat here then. What do they do at 5? What do they do at 10? And I don't know if this is going to fall the way they want this to fall. I believe that their dream scenario is Sonny Styles is on the board at 5. And if Styles is on the board, they will pick him, and they will sit back at 10 and hope that one of the wide receivers they like is there. And worst case scenario, they'll go with Caleb Downs. But from a starting position, I'm still not 1,000% sure Styles will be there at 5. I think it's a chance Tennessee still takes Styles. I know the odds are against it, Joe. And even if they're like, okay, well, don't worry, we got Styles. At 10 now, we take a receiver. I don't think Cornell Tate's going to be there. And Jordan Tyson's rise in the odds perspective has been meteoric. A lot of people think Jordan Tyson could go top 8, maybe even the first wide receiver off the board. So talk to me about the plan of attack for New York with picks 5 and 10.
See, this is tough because are you putting me in the GM spot and saying, Joe, what would you do at number 5 and what would you do at number 10? Or are you saying, what do I think the Giants will do at number 5? I think the Giants are taking Jeremiah Love at number 5. I've told you that from the get-go, just because of how John Harbaugh utilized Derrick Henry when he was there. They wanted the workhorse, and I understand Cam Scatterbo could be that guy, but he's coming off injury, and Jeremiah Love is a dynamic dual threat. You get Jeremiah Love at number 5, and if Lemon or, let's say, another wide receiver is there, what's the problem with taking Lemon, a similar wide receiver to Wan'Dale Robinson that they shipped off to Tennessee? So I don't think it's, if you tell me they take Love and they take Lemon at number 10, I don't think that's bad, or even Jordan Tyson. Now, if it were me, Kevin, I would do it a little bit differently. I would take Caleb Downs at number 5 because we know about how the ability. Think about the teams that they got to go up with in the division. Philadelphia, Dallas with those wide receivers, Jaden Daniels. You want a ball hawk in the secondary at the safety position that could come up and tackle. So that's the way I would attack it, and then address team need, whether you want an outside linebacker at number 10 or a wide receiver. But I would take Caleb Downs at number 5 for the Giants if he's there.
So I do think New York would love Caleb Downs. But this is the game they play, right? Do they have to take him at 5? It doesn't feel like it, right? But do they have to trade back up to get him if they pass on him at 5? I think that's possible. We know the Browns want to get out of 6. So could they come back up? Pick 5, 6. At that point, then it doesn't matter, right? Commanders are listening. Maybe, right? I think that's all on the board. And to your point about Jeremiah Love, though, we're going to get more into Jeremiah Love during, this show here today. We're going to get to the Cincinnati side of this trade. If Jeremiah Love is on the board, I think I agree with you that they select Jeremiah Love, assuming Styles is gone. I don't know if Love and Styles could both be on the board. That feels unlikely. If that plays out that way and they start with Love, how does that I don't think they can take a wide receiver then, right? So very, very interesting blend. Talk Cincinnati after the break. By setting the play-in up like this, what the NBA is letting everybody know is that the back-to-backs are completely unacceptable and the worst thing about their schedule. And these fools,
now they give them 3 days off for one game. Yeah.
They're so scared of back-to-backs. They go, not even in the play-in could we dream of giving anybody a back-to-back.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
It looks like Rory McIlroy and Scottie Scheffler have replaced Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson as must-see golf TV. 14 million people, on average, watch the Masters on Sunday on CBS. That's not including Paramount Plus. It's up 8% from last year, and it just about tied what was probably the best Masters Sunday performance. That was in 2015 when Jordan Spieth won it.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We may be talking about this as one of the best divisions in baseball. It's not generally something we do, but if the Pirates just hold court and the Reds just hold court and the Cubs are in this thing, the Brewers are going to be there in the end too. I mean, that's 4 of the 5 teams. I do think the Cardinals are going to push back at some point. They'll fall back a little bit, but I got 4 teams with a possibility of making the postseason here, Donnie.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Whatever your next job is, the first 24 hours, it's going to be a rehashing of this. You have to suck that up. You can't avoid that. Like, I haven't been in prison in 7 years.
But people do bring it up.
And every story written about me still references the fact that I got in trouble.
Right.
So, unfortunately, you have to live with that the rest of your professional career.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Pro Football Today here on SportsGrid. So I asked Joe, winner and loser, pick one, Giants, Cincinnati. He picks the Giants, and I got to say, I think that's the right move. Ultimately, when I heard this deal, right? I'll never forget where I was when I heard it. When I heard this deal, Joe, I thought it was fake almost, right? Because you would expect that seemed heavy. So I give the Giants credit for that. But the Cincinnati aspect of it excites me. And, I got burned by Cincinnati last year because Burrow gets injured. I thought they could win the Super Bowl. And it's April. But I'm like, maybe the stove won't be hot this time. Dexter Lawrence is so much better than any player they could have possibly acquired at 10 for this coming season. And Cincinnati is, to me, as much about this coming season as Buffalo and Baltimore. We just let them off the hook a little bit, if you will, because they're struggling to make the postseason. But this is a team loaded up, right, to try and win right now. And if this goes wrong, I think there's an escape valve. I'll talk about that. But I like this for Cincinnati because I think it is go, 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 go. And that is exactly what they are doing by making this trade here for Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, think about this. Their defense doesn't have to be elite, Kevin. They just can't be 32nd overall like they've been, in back-to-back seasons, right? As long as Joe Burrow is healthy, look at the offense. They can hum at any point. The problem is, can you get the defense to at least, 18th? If you can get the defense to number 18 overall, now you're cooking with fire. You should be at least a 10 or an 11 win football team. That has been the problem. They can outscore anybody, but the defense obviously falls apart. It fell apart last year. 2 years ago, they got out to a slow start. This past year, they start 2-0 and fall off a cliff. So, you need to change that defensive philosophy, and it starts with veterans like Dexter Lawrence, and all you need is guys that could stay healthy and limit a team to potentially, 20, 21 points a game. If they could do that, they're in every game that they have on their schedule because of how good the offense is.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And when I say they have an escape valve, they're going to have to trade a receiver. If it doesn't work out, they're going to have to trade a receiver. It's what it is. It already feels a little silly that this team has Joe Burrow, a consensus top 5 quarterback, Jamar Chase, the consensus best wide receiver in football, no worse than top 3, and T. Higgins, another top 15 or so wide receiver in this league to go as well. Again, compare this around the league. Is T. Higgins better than Zay Flowers? I think many would say yes. Is T. Higgins better than DJ Moore, Joe?
Yes.
Well, and that's Joe Burrow's number 2. Is T. Higgins better than Rashee Rice?
Yes.
Okay, again, these are the contemporaries. Now, look, the LA Rams last year were, had moments. They looked juggernaut-esque, and you've got Stafford, Puka, Devontae. This team might draft wide receiver. They were calling on A.J. Brown. I'm not saying you're not allowed to have a lot going on. But for Cincinnati, this is a group who have made another push-it move. I like that. And if it ends with a AFC championship game, a division win, a super, whatever, right? Great. If not, you will have to, I think, though, reassess the way that they have spent offensively, Joe, and potentially recoup assets through trades down the road.
And it'll cost Zach Taylor his job. That's the other factor as well. This team doesn't make a playoff run, Kevin. He's gone. I mean, he's basically there because of what the offense possesses. But if they can't put it together this year to make a strong run at a divisional or more importantly, AFC championship, he's got to be gone, and they have to strip it down, to your point. You keep Burrow and you keep one wide receiver, whether it be Chase or Higgins, and you move on from that point. It's unfortunate, but their window is closing right now.
It is. It again, I think I don't want to. I think what you're saying, and I think what I agree with, the window is closing on this exact group of guys, right? You can only run back, this version so long. But the idea for Cincinnati, you're supposed to compete for a very, very long time when you have a Joe Burrow. They are right now incapable of making the postseason. A lot of that is Joe's health. I understand that, but occasionally it's a lot of times it's also the defense and all of these different things that this Cincinnati team is going to have to figure out. Jeremiah Love talk next. So we've already talked a little bit here about Jeremiah Love going fifth. What if he goes fourth? Well, we have a new report. He might go third. It is very clear that Jeremiah Love is going to be picked somewhere inside the top 7 of this draft. Many believe the top 5. I want to start, though, with pick number 3 in Arizona and some of that reporting from ESPN's Adam Schefter, where I think that the Arizona Cardinals wanting to trade back is as all teams like the idea of trading back. The Browns at 6 want to trade back, but if not, they'll take Tate or one of these offensive linemen, and it is what it is. Arizona, I think, might be more willing to lose a trade on paper and move back than teams typically are, right? Let's just say, I'm just going to use completely fake. Let's just say typically the third round, the third overall pick would cost you $1,000. They might be willing to give it up for $900, no problem, right? Because I think Arizona, Joe, has no interest in these edge rushers because they draft project edge rusher all the time, right? That was kind of their bit for a long time there. Simmons, Reddick, whatever it may be. I don't think they want Reese. I don't even think they want Bailey or Styles. And they can't draft Carnell Tate because they have all these pass catchers. And they can't draft one of these offensive linemen at 3 because none of these offensive linemen seem worthy of a top 3 or maybe even top 5 pick. I think Arizona trades out. And I think their connection to Jeremiah Love is just another attempt to make people pick up the phone. Hey, if you love Love, you might have to call us to get up here to 3. I really do believe Arizona gets out of that 3rd slot.
I'm with you on that. They have multiple team needs on the offensive line. They have the worst rushing attack in the NFL last year, and they had, okay running backs with Bam Knight leading the way once, obviously, James Conner went down with the injury. But the offensive line, Kevin, is such a huge cause of concern that no matter what, they have to address that. So better to address it either later in the 1st round or in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, to your point, when you could get maybe multiple draft picks for Jeremiah Love. So you put it out. Do they need a running back? It's possible, especially with Connor coming off an injury. But if there's no offensive line and the offensive line is just as bad as it was last year, you're not going to have running room. And they're going to be battered. And Jacoby Brissett is going to be battered just yet again. So it doesn't matter. You have to address that need. You don't need Jeremiah Love. You have defensive players that could step up. Last year, Walter Nolan went down. But at the end of the day, they have to coach up the defensive side of the ball for the players that they have. But I think they're in a perfect position to rebuild later in this draft. They don't need Love. Love does nothing for this team overall if they take him at number 3.
Yeah, I don't see it being a real logical outcome for Arizona, just not with the way that this team is put together right now. Also, just it does matter the amount of money then you would be required to play Jeremiah Love. Like the guaranteed money he would get, Joe, by being the 3rd overall pick. I mean, I think he would become one of the highest paid running backs in league history. This team re-signed James Conner and went out and signed Tyler Algier. I don't believe it. And, when you kind of look around, as Joe and I are sitting here talking about this now, the books don't believe it that much either. Adam Schefter tweeted at Arizona Cardinals are interested in Jeremiah Love at 3rd overall, and Jeremiah Love is not the favorite to go 3rd overall because people know that is just not how this is going to play out. So here becomes the question, though, Joe. Who comes up to 3? The names we hear most frequently are New Orleans, Kansas City, and Dallas. What do you think about the prospect of one of those 3 teams getting up here to 3, maybe with David Bailey in their sight?
I think it would only be out of those 3 teams, I think it would only be New Orleans. And knowing how Kellen Moore wants to run the football and knowing what they were able to do with the progression of Tyler Shuck, you add now Jeremiah Love into that offense, and now you have much more balance than you did last year. What's the rush for Kansas City now that they have Kenneth Walker to reach up and grab Jeremiah Love and pay that amount of money and number 3 overall? I just don't see it. Dallas got great productivity out of Javonte Williams last year, and that was based off of the passing attack opening things up with C.D. Lamb and George Pickens. So, again, I don't think Dallas needs Jeremiah Love. Would they like to have him if it fell to them? Yeah. But you're going to reach up and grab him at number 3 overall? I just don't see Dallas. I don't see Kansas City doing that. I do see if they, it's an untypical move, I think, for New Orleans, knowing how cheap they've been over the recent years, right? With that roster and Mickey Loomis, the GM, right? Signing aging veterans and not really signing pure young talent. But would they reach up and grab Jeremiah Love? He fits their offense much better than anybody else.
I think the Saints coming up to me, Joe, right? It seems like the team coming up would be coming up to take Bailey, right? So for New Orleans, I don't think I get that. I just don't get that much. I don't know about you. I just don't see. New Orleans isn't that close, Like who's to say New Orleans isn't going to be picking top 8 again next year? I mean, that's going to be the expectations. Let's just call it what it is. Kansas City having 2 first-round picks, right, available to them, that's interesting. This team wants an edge rusher to, get after the quarterback. Bailey might be the best at it in this class. I think that's interesting. The Dallas piece of it, I think it would be a mistake for Dallas because, you've put together this collection of assets and trading away a Micah Parsons, and you gave up some of them to go get Quinnen Williams. And now you bring in David Bailey, and all of a sudden you're like, yep, that's what we did. That's what we've got now. Hey, David Bailey, please be Micah Parsons. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of expectations. And I think Dallas might be better off taking multiple swings. Not that they maybe have to give up the 20th pick, Joe, but I think Dallas is okay picking at 12, or I could see Dallas coming up to 6 if there's somebody that falls in this draft that they really have their eye on potentially. And I know the Browns are a willing to trade back candidate. So the Kansas City one feels, again, for me of that trio, the most likely to go up there and grab Bailey at 3.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking David Bailey, then it's a game changer, right? Because, again, then I can see multiple teams making the move up to number 3 with Arizona to take a fearless edge rusher. And we talked about David Bailey transforming Texas Tech's defense in 1 year. He was that good and that phenomenal. He warrants double teams on almost every play. He's great in run support, has great technique, the ability and a motor to go game after game after game and not wear down. So even in the loss to Oregon, David Bailey had a phenomenal game. But if we're talking which team would do that, yeah, then I could see Kansas City. I could see other teams doing that. But if it's for Jeremiah Love at number 3, Kevin, that's where I think we narrow the field, right? Running back to that point, like you could still get Jadarian Price. You could still get Mike Washington as long as your offensive line is cohesive. Let me throw one name out. And I know the Bears have the 25th overall selection, but knowing how Ben Johnson wants to run the football, would they move up for Jeremiah Love?
I just think it's too out of the range. I also think I think they would have found. Remember, they were connected to Genti last year, Joe, right? And I'm sure that's part of the reason why you bring it up. I think if they were that set on it, though, I think they would have grabbed Genti last year. And somewhat, Loveland better than Genti? You'd probably argue it. We'll be right back here on Sports.
At the end of the day, LeBron's going to have to put that team on his back. Can he do it? I don't know if he could do it for a 7-game series. Can he give you like 2, oh my goodness, LeBron at 31? Yeah, I think he can give you a couple of those games. But it's about the other guys that have to step up.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Let me understand this, Joe. Are we going to have any broadcast games on TV anymore? It's all streaming?
You got to pay to watch here, folks. That's just the way it's going to be, one way or the other. And I'm sure this will satisfy, the FCC looking into the coercion that's going on here with the NBA NFL broadcast rights? Yeah, this is all par for the course, I think.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All these idiots out there sounding off on Tiger right now. See, it's so easy to go after a guy that's hurt. He's hurt. Whether you call it whatever you want. He's got a little bit of an issue he's going to fix. Okay? They're attacking. Attack. Why don't you all shut up and let him go do his thing? He had to leave the country to do it because of privacy? That's nauseating to me.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I see him 15th, 16th, somewhere in that ballpark, and I think that makes sense, Donnie. I don't see him in the top 10. I really don't. I mean, when you look at, let's say, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you start going into that, teams like the Cowboys or the Vikings or the Chiefs, and, could they take a flyer?
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
Back with you guys here on Pro Football Today. You know, Joe, we've been talking about teams coming up to 3 for David Bailey, though a week ago, it was starting to push towards David Bailey won't even be there because, you know, the Jets were going to grab him at 2. Arvell Reese is now a bigger favorite to go second than he has been at any other point during draft season. I mean, some books are starting to push, you know, well through minus 300 on these Arvell Reese to go second overall odds. Are you buying the Jets and Reese at second?
No, I think David Bailey's a better player. And I think if the Jets are going to go pure edge rusher, they go with David Bailey. Again, he is a game changer. He's got a body type, in my opinion, like Jared Verse and a Myles Garrett that warrants double teams. You need to chip him. He could add 10 to 15 pounds of muscle and still be a dominant player. I do feel Arvell Reese is more of a tweener. I think he's more athletic and run sideline to sideline. But again, I don't think he's that dominant edge rusher that David Bailey is. That's just my take on Arvell Reese. I think David Bailey showcased that against better, more elite competition, and I think Arvell Reese certainly is a top 10 pick, but if the Jets are going to go that route, I think they take Bailey over Reese, in my opinion.
I think what's very interesting is the way this process has gone for New York and how it feels like they have decided pick number 2 is going to be a pass rusher and pick 16 is going to be a wide receiver. There were some reports, you know, recently, Joe, that said they're looking at 16 to maybe grab an Omar Cooper out of Indiana or KC Concepcion, who I know you really like, out of Texas A&M. Like Carnell Tate at 101. I was speaking to somebody who knows the Jets pretty well, just saying, like, you know, is it crazy? Is it crazy to consider Carnell Tate at 2? When you look at the money that wide receivers are getting, I don't think it is crazy to consider Carnell Tate at second overall. If they think he's, you know, that kind of guy. But let me put it to you, Joe. When you look at what the Jets need, is it obviously the right decision to be looking at Reese and Bailey more so than looking at Carnell Tate?
No, it's not. But again, you see, like, here's the thing, though, Kevin. They have Geno Smith. You got to protect Geno Smith. You better have 6 to 7 seconds to throw the football, or he's going to get battered each and every play. And the problem is, I'm not sold on the offensive line. But again, if you're telling me best available player and you want offense, I would go Carnell Tate. You pair him with his, you know, another Ohio State wide receiver and Garrett Wilson. Now you have an offense similar to what Joe Burrow and Cincinnati have. You have a dynamic 1-2 punch. You have a potential to put up 30, 40 points per game, but you better have a gunslinger at the quarterback position, and that's the problem now. Now we go back to the X factor with Geno Smith. And Geno Smith is only effective, Kevin, when he has multiple seconds to throw the football. So that's the problem. So what are we looking at here? Are we looking at a team that needs a quarterback and wants to add an elite wide receiver, or do you just want to take care of the defense? If it was me and you're telling me it's Geno Smith, I'm going David Bailey because it's a safer pick. There's no shot or guarantee that if I take Carnell Tate, Geno Smith's going to be upright and going to be able to deliver him the football. It'll look like Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson last year.
So I guess for me, Joe, I don't feel I have a much higher opinion of the offensive line for the Jets than you. And I think that we have a setup now for this team with Geno back there where this offense is going to get some very real hype is maybe too strong, but I think they're going to be looked at as a group who's going to get better and be better, right? But what I am struggling with a little bit, and I just think that there are these adjustments that happen throughout football. If I say, hey, I'm taking a wide receiver at 2, That's a little high, wide out, better be a megastar. You say you're taking an edge rusher at 2. It's like, yeah, that's what we do. Is he a project? That's fine. But I look, Joe, at the Will Anderson contracts and the Micah Parsons contracts, and they're bigger than wide receiver contracts, but not by as much as they once were. And if a wide receiver is more of a sure thing, that is interesting. And while the Jets at 16 probably like the wide receiver options more than they will the pass rushing options for, I wonder if there is something about New York grabbing more of a sure thing at 2 than, because I got to tell you, Joe, I like David Bailey, but David Bailey losing out on a battle to Arvell Reese is somewhat of an indictment on Bailey, in my opinion. Like, clearly there's elements of Bailey and Reuben Bain for that matter, that NFL scouts are still weary of, right? It's Arvell Reese is kind of new to this. People are hoping they can teach him to be an elite edge rusher. Bain and Bailey produced, and they're struggling to hold this guy off. I think so. Again, it's not likely. The odds tell us it's not happening. But would I be stunned if there was just some more Tate wins swirling about as we get closer to draft day? I would not be surprised.
No, we agree that having a pure elite wide receiver in this league could be lethal and could lead you to a championship. Look at Seattle with JSN, right? JSN became that guy. He was so good that everybody else was secondary and not important as it related to the passing attack. So, yes, if you could get that guy, I absolutely agree in the top 5, he can transform your team immediately into a winner. But the problem still remains, Kevin. Again, Justin Jefferson was an elite wide receiver, still is. But if you don't have a quarterback like J.J. McCarthy that couldn't get him the football, he then all of a sudden becomes a non-commodity.
That's fair. And, this is going to be it's a team that is projected, though, to go through a lot of turnover this offseason. It's a very interesting spot they find themselves in. We'll round up the rest of the news after the break. All right, Joe, just looking to round up some of the other news as we approach the NFL draft. Not everything draft based here. Like Dallas was never drafting a kicker. They did pay one, though. Brandon Aubrey, the highest paid kicker in the National Football League. $7 million a year on average. Worth it, in my opinion. I mean, you look at some of these teams, they can't find kickers for years and years and years. When you find one, you keep him in the building, and that's what Dallas had to do to here.
Yeah, he's got a live leg, Kevin. Now, a little inconsistent. He missed a couple of long ones, which was out of his, MO, because all he does is nail it time and time again, and he's a pressure type of kicker. But think about this offense. All they have to do basically is get to midfield, and Aubrey's in play, right? We saw that with the New York Giants game in week number 2. So, again, when you have a kicker like that, and you're comfortable, and he's made multiple kicks for your organization, you keep him in the building for a long time. He's young enough. $7 million a year is worth it.
So I think for Dallas, it's a nice piece of business. The interesting thing, though, is people are like, all right, now it's George Pickens' turn. And it's like, okay, we'll see. Because here's the thing. The Brandon Aubrey contract went down to the wire, but there's just too much going on for it to be a big story. This Pickens thing is not going to go away. And it's just another headache gearing up in Dallas. So, on one hand, good. On another hand, meh. Trent Williams is going to stay with San Francisco. They figured out a new deal. It is remarkable that, this team, how many years ago at this point now? 5, 6 years ago, we're able to acquire Trent Williams. There were some health concerns, and they've just been able to get all pro play the entire time. Trent Williams, one of the best offensive linemen in the world, Joe, probably one of the better offensive linemen in the history of the game, and he's locked in for another 2 in the Bay.
Yeah, think about, their ability to run the football with McCaffrey. He went out towards the end of the regular season with some injuries, but, and didn't play a full season. But at the end of the day, Kevin, he's the best offensive tackle, in that division, and not more importantly, maybe in the NFC. So, again, when you think about the team and protecting Brock Purdy and protecting this team that is basically set now for an NFC championship run, you need Trent Williams in that lineup. When he's out of the lineup, they're not the same football team.
No, that is 100% true. We've seen his absence loom large when they deal with it. In quarterback news, Jimmy Garoppolo considering retirement. Sure, he's got a lot of money in the bank, right? But it's interesting because kind of some of the reports around him retiring are like, oh, the Rams would love to have him back. Why would Jimmy G, I assume he already lives in LA, not just show up and be, Stafford's backup? What's he worried? Stafford's going to get hurt? It's going to have to play a little bit? What's the story here, Joe?
Maybe he lost a fire in the belly, Kevin. Maybe he wants to be on a reality show. Maybe he wants to be on Age of Attraction. Who knows with Jimmy G? You don't know. Maybe he's got a secondary career that we don't know about.
You relate to this guy. You relate to this man.
I do.
Yeah. Other quarterback news. Except is it even news? Basically, I'm going to put my own spin on it. Aaron Rodgers just never picks up the Steelers' phone calls, and he likes to create as much drama as possible. Why is Pittsburgh not heard from Aaron Rodgers? Is this not outrageous?
No, this is what he does. The fact that we have reports about insiders, pumping it out. If they didn't cover it, maybe he would stop doing it. He loves the drama.
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. If we didn't pay any news to it, that Aaron Rodgers hasn't discussed any career advice or, whether he plans on being on the roster in 2026 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, then maybe he would make his decision a lot sooner. I think he loves the hype and he loves the talk. He feeds off of it. You know, if you're dialed in for the year, you don't do that to your team, especially now with a new head coach / old head coach in Mike McCarthy.
That's the part of it that just doesn't make any sense, right? Is if Rodgers does not come back, it would be stunning, stunning, stunning news. But because of that, I don't understand why we're still waiting on the news, if that makes sense, right? Like, what is this process for Aaron Rodgers? The thing is, you cannot stress how important of a decision it is for Pittsburgh. Like, if this went left, the Steelers would be put in a total bind. It's an interesting one to follow, and we'll follow it the entire way. Joe Lisi, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you next time on Pro Football Today.
The New York Knickerbockers are NBA champions. Da 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 da. Canyon of Heroes, parade, convertibles, hot chicks in Knick jerseys. The Knicks finally get over the hump and win an NBA title. And there's me, and there's Jalen Brunson.
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
There are guys you know are great. We don't know that about Cal Raleigh. It is possible that Cal Raleigh isn't one of the 5 best catchers in baseball by the end of this season. And that's the difference. It's not possible that Aaron Judge isn't one of the 5 best outfielders in baseball. That's not on the board. It's on the board for Cal Raleigh.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Team feels slow, it feels old, it feels uninteresting. It just kind of feels like a lot of guys who are quality ball players, some big contracts, but are just like lethargic when they're out there. Like Manny Machado moves in slow motion, so does Nick Castellanos, so does Xander Bogaerts, so do a lot of these players in this lineup. And I might be piling on a little bit too deep, but this was supposed to be a contender for a World Series.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
There is one cardinal rule in sports media. You do not mess with the game or the ability for people to watch the game. These streaming giants better figure out how to deliver a live sporting event without any hitches, because broadcast television understood this for decades, and they know, Donnie, hey, there is nothing more important.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.